Hello, and welcome to the Professor Podcast with Ruth and Claire. Each episode, we talk about a particular topic in the life of a professor. We are tenure-track faculty members in the sciences, working at a primarily undergraduate university in California. The purpose of our podcast is reflection, so we bring something we think is working and something we're working on to discuss.
Welcome to the Professor Podcast with Ruth and Claire. I'm Ruth.
And I'm Claire, and today I'm super excited that we are catching up with Ruth. So, Ruth, how was your week?
My week was really good. I have discovered that there's actually other viruses than coronavirus that I need to be concerned about. So I kind of forgot that that was a thing, and the poor kids got, it's called RSV.
Okay.
Which I don't know what that stands for, but I think it's a thing that, you often get as babies, but you kind of build immunity to. But as one of my friends here said, we're basically all kind of immunocompromised because we haven't, the kids haven't been in school for 18 months.
I see.
So, yeah, so I forgot how sick. They were sick for 12 days. So,
oh my goodness.
I know. And we had, they had a midterm break and they were sick throughout the whole thing. So it was sad. But I was like, this has to be COVID. And then it's like, oh no, that's actually just other viruses. So yeah, that was news to me. But so this weekend, everyone is sleeping through the night, and so that's a big improvement.
Well, that is good. I'm glad to hear that you're...
How about you? How was your week?
My week was good. I had my first experience with rearranging the schedule of classes because what happened was, for the class I'm teaching next semester, there was just a situation where almost everybody needed to take one lab section and hardly anybody was going to take the other lab section, and we had to rearrange, and then there were also some conflicts. So anyway, it was really interesting because, I had everybody's different conflicts, and I was trying to figure out a solution to all the conflicts, and then whenever I had a solution, it had new conflicts, of course. So anyway, we have resolved it. It's under control. And so it was really interesting just to kind of delve into scheduling a little bit and think about, because one thing that I hadn't really thought about is okay, maybe it's not conflicting with this other class, but because, there's two different lab sections, you could take one or the other, but if you take this lab section, then that requires you to take this other class. It just, things propagate along, and it was just a more complex math problem than I had thought it was going to be, but it's all
there's
fixed.
a legit reason why that's part of the GRE and stuff is Mary needs to attend a meeting, but she can only go on a days when redheaded people go, or whatever it is, and it's that's way out of my mental capacities to do that kind of.
It was really interesting
chess.
to delve into it. So I'm glad to have
but
that experience.
But what's mysterious too is how come things can trundle along for years and everything works, and then just one semester suddenly nothing.
I know. Something changed.
Mysterious.
I don't know what changed, but we need to... Yeah, so we have a new system that works now, so that's good. Yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah. And I've had that situation with lopsided labs before, and oh no.
Totally.
It's worth changing. So yeah, that was cool.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
So you have a quote for us today, I think?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's a repeat quote, but it's this poem called Postscript by Seamus Heaney. And it's a poem that, as I lived in America, would just literally give me a pain in my heart every time I read it.
Oh,
so
wow.
It feels very, I don't know. So it's kind of describing a beautiful scene in the poem, and at the end it says, "As big soft buffetings come at the car sideways and catch the heart off guard and blow it open." And this is very dramatic. I'm but it feels like that here. I keep having these moments and things I see where it's just this almost contraction of your heart.
Wow.
And you're oh my God. And so, yeah, it's very, because, okay, I'm going to do all the catch up stuff, but it's hard to move to a different country.
Yeah.
But then every now and again when I see a certain something and that I have that experience, it's very powerful.
And so you're talking about, now that you're in Ireland, seeing something that's really Irish and reminiscent of your previous time being in Ireland? Is that what are those the things?
Or there's certain, I live quite close to the coast, and there's just certain days with the sky a certain way, and it's just when people say things are breathtaking, and you're whatever, but they're genuinely breathtaking, and I'm but it's so weird how, there's so many things that were so breathtaking in America all the time, but there's something about this, and maybe it's like you said, there might be a layer of nostalgia there that is what's actually going on. But anyway, it's happened to me so many times since I've come home that I'm oh, it is this poem. So yeah, all the times when I read that poem in the States, and I was yeah, it's weird to have it happen now. So I'm
Wow.
into it.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
so glad you're experiencing all these breathtaking places
Yeah.
in Ireland.
Yes. Yes. So
So,
do you?
yeah,
Oh yeah.
go.
Can I interrupt and do a thing?
Yeah.
Because I just want to say thank you so much to you and Ralph and all of your amazing guests for keeping the show on the road and how amazing it's all been. And I've loved listening to it every week. It kind of feels weird because we're like catching up, but then I feel like I've been like up to date with what's going on with you because I've been listening to it, and it's very cool. And all
Oh,
of the guests have been fantastic.
well, that's so nice of you to say that. Thanks. Thanks a lot. I'm so glad to have you back on the show.
Oh, me too.
And I've just been excited about this all week that we're actually going to be recording together again.
And it took some mathematics, right? Because like
It did.
our time change was like last week, and then yours was this week, and
Yes.
it's time change math is way beyond me. Like that's the thing I can't. That's the edge of my mathematical skills.
I
Is
know.
time changes.
That's why I felt like before we recorded today, I had to send a text being like, "Do we
Oh,
agree
yeah.
that we're meeting in 1 hour?"
No, totally. That's absolutely
Yeah.
yeah. So today, are we going to do the format of working and working on?
Yeah, if that works for what you're thinking. I mean, I just want to hear
Perfect.
about what's working for you and anything you're working on
Yeah,
too.
we
But
could
yeah,
have a whole. We could have a sub podcast called "Tips for Moving to a Different Country." We could do that. That would be a whole other thing. But yeah, yep.
yeah. So I mean, I just want to know, like, you're in Ireland, you're on your leave of absence. Is it?
Mhm.
Are you getting the things that you needed to get? What things are you getting?
Yeah.
What-
And so part of like one of the things I think I would put this in the working on section, but one of the things I'm trying to get comfortable with is just like landing, because part of me is like, okay, it's day 2. Am I feeling better? What's it like? And I'm kind of like stressing myself out about like, do you know what I mean? So I'm trying to be like, it's okay. We just got here. It's fine. So getting comfortable with
Yeah,
that. But I think
that makes sense.
yeah, I think well, one thing that I am doing is like I'm teaching a lab in the university where I did my PhD.
Okay, cool.
And so that's super interesting, and it's very interesting to be like I hadn't ever taught in Ireland before, so it's really interesting to do that and compare it to what it's like in the university we were in before,
Oh,
and
that's
just
so interesting.
all of that. And so it's weird to be back in the classroom, and so because they're face to face, and so all of those things are different. But
Oh.
yeah, so there's so many weird things with Ireland. Like I feel like a weird adult baby because I don't know how anything works for some reason. And people like, luckily people in stores are really nice and patient, and they're like, no, this is what you need to do. Like there's a thing here where you have to bring €2. So like you put it in the slot to get the supermarket cart to bring around the store, and like I'm just there like just yanking the cart, and they're like, okay, hang on, so you need it. I'm like, I don't have it, and so they help me out. So just lots of things where they're like, but you sound Irish, but yet you don't know how anything works. Like so yeah, you know those movies that used to be like a cave person was suddenly animated in the cart. That's
present,
kind of what I felt like. I was just like stumbling around not knowing how to do stuff.
Oh
But,
gosh.
yeah.
That's so interesting. That reminds
it's-
me of just like I wasn't living there, but when I was in Italy, I was trying to buy bananas, and they just had a system where you like weigh the bananas, at least in this particular grocery store, and then you get like this little sticker that tells
and
you how much.
Oh no, that's how. Yeah.
And I didn't know that, so I just walked up to the cash register with my bananas, and they were trying to tell me what I needed to do, but I didn't speak Italian anyway.
Oh man.
But yeah.
Well,
so
that's
I
what's
wouldn't
so
know you
interesting.
needed the euro either. That's so interesting. Go
Oh
ahead.
god, yeah. There's so many things, and then I'm kind of like so it's driving on the other side of the road.
Oh
and
my
then it's also,
goodness.
yeah, like driving in a city is like a whole other thing. And so I have a very nice friend who, when the girls were starting school, she did the school run with me like 4 times in a row, so that I could just automatically know what to do. And
Like
yeah,
she
so
drove
that's good.
in front of you, or what?
she sat in the car, and she was
Oh, I
like,
see.
you know, reminding me of how to drive in Dublin, because like to me, after being in the States for so long, like the roads, I'm like, this cannot be a 2-way street. Like there's no way.
It's too
And
small.
somehow it is, and you're like, but this isn't like physically possible. But
Wow.
yes, yeah, it all works. So
That's fascinating.
yeah, and
So, yeah.
yeah, I think I'm kind of like starting to relax into being able to see people more than once, because like the first couple of times I saw people, it was like super hyper, like, oh my god, because you have to like catch up on everything, because that's how it's been the 2 times I came home for in like holiday time.
Sure.
It's so
this is
intense
the moment
'cause-
you're seeing them, yeah.
Right. And so this time it's like, oh, we could leave a little till next week. Maybe I'll see you then. So that's a lot more relaxing. And
Uh-huh.
I don't know why. I'll never be able to figure this out, why this is a thing. But so in Ireland, people hang out their washing to dry.
Okay.
And
So they don't
it's
have
a kind of,
dryers. Yeah.
like now they do have dryers, but they still hang it out to do the main drying outside.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always a point of, and people have even asked me, they're like, but why don't people in California dry their clothes outside? And I think where we lived, it's
It's
kind of
too
clear it's quite
wet.
foggy and
Yeah.
humid. But where we lived previous to that, um, it was like so hot, but it was like a thing. And even in one of the houses we lived in, it said it in the lease, like you cannot hang out the clothes to dry on the washing line. And that was like not an okay thing to do. So anyway, so I don't know why. To me, they smell really different when you hang them out in the washing line. So
Oh,
that's
that's
that's a big thing.
nice.
So every time I hang them out, I'm like, oh, that's what we're doing. But yeah,
Even
and
that phrasing of hanging out the clothes is like something I'm not really familiar with that
oh
phrasing because
yeah,
it's so, yeah, that's cool.
yeah, and it's again like kind of a ridiculous task because it's often raining, so you do need to scurry out and get them back in again. So yeah, but there's something very, I guess, probably that nostalgia again of getting the clothes.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
nice.
yeah, and the kids are really settling into school,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they're very quickly going to know more Irish words than I know, so that
Oh,
can
wow,
be,
really?
yeah, they're very, I was anxious about it, but they're just like picking it up so fast, and so
So is the
that's no
school,
problem.
like, is the language, are they learning in English or are they learning in Irish?
That's a really good question because there's quite a few people I know whose kids go to Irish schools where everything is
Mm-hmm.
through Irish, but
Mm-hmm.
they're in an English speaking school, but like
Okay.
Irish is one of the subjects they do.
Oh, I see.
But
Okay.
yeah, I noticed like my friend here is she's a vice principal of a school, not the one they're in, but when she talks, she often just says things in English and then says the exact same thing in Irish
Ah,
again. So like I think that's how they probably do it in the
that makes a
classroom. So
lot of
there's a lot
sense.
of yeah, and like all of the tables that they sit at is like by different color, but that's all through Irish, and so
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very submersive.
What do you mean by different color?
So like I think like from COVID restrictions, so
Mm.
each class is broken into groups and they're all on
Mm-hmm.
different tables and each table has a color and that's like you're on the yellow table or you're on the
I
purple
see.
table and you kind of
Mm-hmm.
stick with it for a while and so
Okay.
yeah, and hilariously my youngest came home and she's like, Mom, I have an enemy. And I was like, oh wow. So she has this terrible enemy on her table who she gives us daily reports of how much this person drives her nuts, but she hasn't had one before, so she's very excited. She's like, my first enemy. So yes, that's
That's
exciting.
fun. And then,
Yeah.
so tell us, so you're talking about you're teaching this lab at the university you got your
Hmm.
PhD, right? What are some of the similarities and differences that you're seeing? I mean, we could probably
Well,
do
the
a whole
biggest,
episode,
well, I
but
mean, the labs, like, they're so stressful to me because I am not a technological person and they're kind of like more advanced equipment. So it's
okay.
generally just everybody calling for the lab tech to come and help them, please,
Hmm.
because it's like we don't know how to do this stuff. But I think the biggest difference is seeing that all of the students are in one cohort together.
Hmm.
And so they're all taking the same classes together. And
Hmm.
so, like, they can do a thing where they're like, oh, hey, like today there's this conference. So that's what the students are going to do today. And that's something we could never do, because you don't know who has what classes or what's happening. So that is a big difference, I think,
So
that they're
everyone's a little
all,
more, because you've talked before about how everyone just has the schedule that they march through over their
yes,
years of being a student. So it's a little more prescribed, and therefore you can do that kind of thing. That's interesting. Yeah.
right. And I think that's good news and bad news because I'm
Hmm.
sure, if people have personal issues that happen with classmates and stuff, you're
Oh,
really
yeah.
like locked in with those people forever. And so there's a lot of warnings in the beginning, like, please don't have romances with your classmates because it could be a long 4 years otherwise. So,
How does it
yeah.
work if people fail a class? Does that happen?
Yeah, so when they fail, then you do what's called repeats in
Mm-hmm.
the summer. And so at the end of
Oh,
August, they will have, like, you have the opportunity to do a repeat paper.
okay.
And then if you fail that again, then you just have to take the whole year
The whole year again,
through.
I see.
And I'm not sure the intricate details if you only necessarily have to take that one class. I think if you failed a certain portion of the classes, you just have to do everything again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Interesting.
so, yeah. And it seems like one thing that I would find really stressful, and people are talking about it at the moment, is you have to submit your exams for
Mm.
review before you finish teaching the class. And so that would
Oh,
be, yeah, I would find that really hard.
like somebody has to check your exams and make sure that
Hmm.
are they
They're
checking
all,
the content of your exams or the grading of your exams?
they do both actually. So
Okay,
they
interesting.
have, after they grade exams, they have like these review boards where they have to have a person who's external to the university come and check through. Like they'll just pick out, I think, sample exam papers and check them that the grading was okay or
Hmm,
all that sort of stuff. So it's a lot
interesting.
more formal in that way,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
for sure. So
More
yeah,
external review. That's interesting.
yeah. And so it's
Cool.
definitely different, I think. And it's weird because it's a school that is a PhD granting institution. So I think there's a lot more research
Yeah,
sort of talk going on. But then probably not, I don't know. It's sort of hard, like to
yeah.
what level that's at. But yeah,
Well, that's really interesting. That's really
yeah.
interesting. So, have we covered all the things you were thinking of working on, or what else do you have?
Oh, my working on, yeah. So I think the things that I'm working on is like shame and panic is my
Mm.
biggest feelings because every now and again I'm just like, oh my God, I just threw a grenade into my whole career. And like, yes, so there's that. And then just, so like sometimes borderline hysteria about that. But I think just being here is a lot more relaxing. And
Okay.
I think, like I've sort of alluded on here before to having health issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, as you know, I had like some surgery before I left the States.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I'm just trying, like, I think I'm still in a real digestion period about things. And like, I know I want things to be different, but I haven't quite landed on what that looks like in terms
Mm-hmm.
of kind of
Mm-hmm.
work life balance. But even things feel easier. Like when the kids were sick, that was always a stress. And then
Mm-hmm.
I can just call my foster mom and be like, are you free to take the kids? And over they went and had a great day
Mm-hmm.
and got spoiled
Mm-hmm.
rotten and had like a lovely time. So like that was really helpful and easy.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
and I was in the lab, teaching the lab on Thursday, and there was another instructor there,
Mm-hmm.
and they were from a different country, and they were talking about, like, I'm going to use physics terminology because it's the only thing I can think of, but like there's always an energy cost to being somewhere different. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
not in your energy minimum, like you're not in
Mm-hmm.
equilibrium. And he was talking about feeling that here when he lives here rather than
Mm-hmm.
where he's from. And I could just feel that kind of relaxing a bit.
Cool.
So
And
that's
that's one of
cool.
the things you talked about. I mean, both those things you talked about. Just being in a foreign country is a lot of energy, and so having that relief going back to Ireland, and then the support network of
Yeah.
your established family and community ties in Ireland that you can rely on there. So that's great that you're finding both of those to be the case now that you're
Right.
there.
And the kids are like, they're kind of fun because they're like, who are all these people who are so into us? Like, they're like, wow, because like they just haven't had that much experience of extended family
Uh
before.
huh.
So that's super exciting for them.
That's great. That's great.
And the other thing I'm working on is I have an assignment to teach a class next semester that
Mm-hmm.
I'm super excited about, and also it's really different. And so I feel like I'm going to need to talk to you a lot about it. But
Oh, cool.
they have a really cool program here where I think everywhere there's an issue with trying to get people to do high school, or here it would be secondary school teaching,
Okay.
and especially in physics, because I think a lot of people go into different careers when they do physics. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like they
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily end up teaching. So the government has a scheme where they are taking people who are already secondary school teachers and giving them professional development to learn physics so then they can
Okay.
add physics into the kind of
Mm-hmm.
repertoire of what they teach. And
Cool.
so I will be teaching them next
The
semester.
physics. How
Yeah.
interesting. What a
So
different population of students that will
oh,
be.
totally. And like, and it's all online. So I think they
Okay.
come to Dublin like 3 times in the semester to do some labs on a
Mm-hmm.
weekend, but otherwise it's online in the evenings. And so it's really like, I don't know how to say this. I don't mean this as patronizing as it sounds, but they're like adult learners. And I know
Mm-hmm.
the students we teach are adult learners, but I think like they're people who already have degrees and are working. And so
And
that's
it
very
all, yeah,
different.
it does seem very. And they're going to be teaching this exact material very
Yeah.
soon. So that seems like a different kind of application that they would expect to be, you know.
Totally.
So that's really that's fascinating. That'll be really
Yeah.
interesting to
And I
teach
think,
this.
I mean, I talked to someone who had, and she said they're great and they're super motivated. And I mean, some of them are like really admirable because they are basically giving up their time
Uh
so
huh.
that their school can have physics. Like their school maybe doesn't currently offer physics as a subject, and they're
Mhm.
doing
Mhm.
this so their students can do that. But I think also they're used to being in charge of their own classrooms, and so it's
Mm.
very different to like be in a classroom. So
Oh, that is
that
a
would
good
be,
point too. So
yeah.
they're probably really good students in lots of ways. You know, they
Hmm.
know how to learn and they have this motivation to learn it. But then on the other hand, they're used to being in charge of the classroom. That would
Because
be
I know
really
I'm a
interesting.
pain when I do
Uh huh.
classes, like
Yeah.
I'm really irritating, and I'm like, this is maybe how I would do it. Yeah, so I that will be interesting to see for
That's
sure.
fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So
I
I'm
look for.
super excited about that. That will
Mhm.
be interesting, but I feel like I'm going to need to talk to you a lot about it for
I'm
sure.
excited to talk about it. That sounds awesome. That sounds really interesting.
Well, I feel like I think I might have said this on the podcast at some point, but I'm very curious about teaching online to people who are actually wanting to learn online. Do you know
Uh
what I mean?
huh.
Because I feel like we
Mhm.
all did it against our will
Yeah.
during COVID. And so it's super interesting because there was some people who just loved being online. Like
Mhm.
not a lot,
There
but there was
were.
a few who were like, this is great and I can work and do
Mhm.
whatever I need to do and then watch the lectures whenever I want and that kind of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah. And in
yeah.
this case, these people have elected to take this online class. Yeah. That'll
Hmm.
be really interesting.
So tell me, do you have a little what's working for you? Or because you've
Yeah.
had to
So
do a lot of hustling and shuffling to make this all keep the show on the road, which I'm enormously grateful for.
yeah, I mean, it was really cool when Ralph and I were figuring out what to do. So what's working is it's been really cool to get perspectives from these different guest
Yeah.
co-hosts and interviewees and an interviewer. And they just had new ideas about the same topics, or they had new ideas for topics and new perspectives. And, you know, not all of them were in their sixth year of this tenure track position, you know, so that was a variety of mindsets that was really nice. So yeah, it just made me think about what our podcast is because we were exploring pushing these boundaries and like so I that was really nice. But of course, I'm working on. I've been missing your input in particular, and as you know, I've sometimes texted you and been like, "We're going to record this episode. Do you have any thoughts
Oh,
on this
who?
topic?" You know, and then the continuity of having it be you and me having a discussion every week has been something I've been missing. So
Well, I mean,
I'm
and just to give viewers, or not viewers, listeners, a view behind the scenes, guys, like, what do we do again? Like, how did we ever do this? What's the order of operations? And yeah,
yeah,
it's weird
totally.
for
So
sure.
yeah, it's definitely been, I think, interesting and broadening. Um, but I'm really, really glad that we're working towards you being back here
Oh, I
for
would love
most, if not
to.
all, episodes, and I hope all episodes. And yeah, the fans miss Ruth too. I've heard from a bunch of fans who've said that they're so looking forward to you being back.
Okay,
And so,
I'm gonna say that's true. But I was especially moved by Darian's interview. Am I
yes,
saying his
me
name
too.
correctly?
Hmm.
And when he mentioned that the podcast had an impact on his career decisions, that
Yeah,
was huge. That was
that was
very,
huge.
yes, very
Yeah.
cool. Very, very cool. And then it's been nice because, I mean, a lot of the people you've interviewed have been people that I know and care about, and I've been very excited to hear their voices. So that was
Uh
super
huh.
cool too.
Uh
But
huh.
yeah.
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 So
So
really glad
we're
that you're back.
international,
Now we're
basically.
international.
Yeah.
Exactly. Different perspectives from different parts of the world
I'm gonna
in
have to see
academia.
now if my accent changes too.
I've
I
been
don't
wondering
know.
if it will. So far, it
Yeah.
sounds the same to me.
Well, and my friends are like, I feel like the American accent, like when you're looking at genetics and there's like dominant genes or something.
Okay. Uh
I feel
huh.
like the American accent, because whenever we hang out with other people with kids, their kids come away with an American accent instead
Interesting.
of the other way around. So I'm like, well, maybe it's never going to change and we're just going to
You're gonna
keep
spread the
going.
American accent around a little
Hmm.
bit. That's funny. When I hang out with my aunt, who has a German Austrian kind of accent, I sometimes feel like I'm picking up some of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's just automatic, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, so glad that you're back, Ruth, and looking
Me
forward
too.
to
And
doing many
yeah,
more
sorry,
episodes with you.
I'm like keep doing weird awkward pauses
No,
because
that's
I've
fine.
forgotten the
What were
podcast.
you gonna say something
Yeah,
else?
we'll have lots of time to catch up.
Yeah.
But thanks again for doing such a lovely job. And thanks to all those co-hosts out there. You did.
Yes, thanks to all
work.
the co-hosts and interviewee and interviewer. We're so delighted that you've been on the show.
Yay. Okay. Thanks so much for joining us on the Professor Podcast with Ruth and Claire. We're delighted to have you as a listener, and we would love to hear from you. And if you want to email us, our address is contactprofessorpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear any of your suggestions for future shows or professor quotes that you might want to share with us, or even just things that have come up for you when you were listening to previous episodes. And if you've been enjoying the podcast, we would love if you would spread the word. So the best way to spread word is by telling people you know if you think they should listen to it, or you can leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.